SLC Sunday Experience. And we want you to know that your soul is welcome here.
You're in the right place at the right time, just where you are meant to be. Whether you're standing in this room or live streaming today. We're so happy you're here, and we're gonna sing about it. Here we go! I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I'm meant to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I'm meant to be. In the right place, I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I'm meant to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I'm meant to be. Oh, my soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is. Those that are live streaming, you're in the right place at the right time. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I am meant to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I am meant to be. Oh, my soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome. Oh, my soul is. Oh, my soul is welcomed here. Oh, my soul is welcomed here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome. I'm getting the message. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. My soul is welcome here. My soul is welcome here. Yes, it is. My soul is welcome here. My soul is welcome. No matter what culture, sexual orientation, political or religious affiliation, one God is any pace. Everybody's welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here.
Well, good morning.
Good morning to you.
And welcome back from your travels, Reverend James.
Yes, I'm good to be back. I got in the godly hour this morning, and I was scheduled to speak. We're going to have Dr. Gail Derin speak on my behalf, so I won't fall asleep here on the platform.
Well, and you don't often tell us personal things,
Yes.
but you were on a very important trip.
Yes, I was dropping my one and only son off to college in Washington, D.C., so we just let that happen.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's the only beginning.
Yes.
Only the beginning, as they say.
And we're so grateful your parents dropped you off here this morning.
Yes. All of our parents, our most important parent.
Yes.
Spirit of the living God. Is my
Yes.
mic on? Yes, okay, good. Just want to make sure.
So let's do this. Let's welcome each other. Let's say, welcome.
Welcome.
And we know that you are not here by accident. You are always here by divine appointment. Whether you're live stream watching from home or the beach, we're a little jealous, but... And we know that you're so warmly welcomed in this community, the loving, warm, open-hearted Spiritual Life Center. And you're just never here by accident. No one is.
No,
Yeah.
Always.
And whether you're watching live streaming or whether you're sitting here, we always affirm that we honor all those people worshiping in churches, temples, mosques, simple stone circles, or out on the water in a kayak. Because there is no place that God is not, especially on a kayak. Yeah. And especially with cell phones off. So there's great honor in your turning your cell phones off if you haven't already done so.
Because now we can have a direct connection with the presence of God. So we can carry out our purpose and mission as a community, which is to be here to transform lives as we love, as we serve, and as we remember. Let us take those words into our consciousness right now as we commune with the presence for just a moment. And realize that as we've going through a major challenge this week in our own country, in our world, we remember that we all come from the one presence, the one power, the one reality that we call God. And we all are made of the divine qualities of this presence. And our job is to simply bring it forth through the activity of our awareness as we think about the presence, as we speak from this presence, and as we act from this presence. We realize that there is no otherness. We realize there is no separation between us and all of our fellow citizens and brothers and sisters on the planet, for we all come from that one source. And there only is one race, and that is the spiritual race. And as we come from that awareness and we break down the seeming barriers that we have created, and we begin to act from this awareness so that we can be seen as we are seen at our highest and best, as expressions of the one presence and one power of love itself. So we come here today to remind ourselves of this truth so that we can be what we're here to be. And we say so in the name and the nature of the Spirit of the living God. Amen.
Amen. And we have someone very special here to talk to us this morning. Would you like to say a few words about Rev. Dr. Gail Derin?
Well, she's not a stranger here to Spiritual Life Center. She's been here numerous times. Our Wednesday services. She spoke here a month or two ago. I can't quite remember. And Mother's Day, yes, as you remember that wonderful Mother's Day presentation. And so I just give a warm Spiritual Life Center welcome once again to Dr. Gail Derin, who is our speaker here today.
And this week, our Wow Wednesday program is our beautiful Reverend Janae Artero. Janae Marth Artero is her maiden name, and I just took a trip back in time.
Okay.
So she's going to present a program that is titled By Thy Grace. And if anyone knows Janae, she's led meditations here. She's just a beautiful soul. Don't miss that opportunity on Wednesday to hear her story. She'll give a little talk and a beautiful meditation. So salad is at 6, and the program starts at 7. We also have on the 30th, coming up, Mysterious Mountain, Secrets and Legends of Mount Shasta. And we've been hearing about that program. It'll be amazing. It's with 2-time Grammy Award-winning Native American flute player Mary Youngblood, and also the Juilliard-trained master percussionist Michael Bayard. He is amazing, and together they're going to put together a performance that will be mystical, magical, and mysterious and lovely. So don't miss it.
All righty. And then we have an announcement from our chaplain.
I believe that
this
there
morning.
may be a chaplain here to tell us, or may not. They are going to be meeting right after first service in the Common Ground conference room to tell you a little bit about what the Prayer Chaplain program has to offer you. So if you felt the nudge to become a prayer chaplain in this coming season or in seasons to come, if you've had any questions, join them. It's a good time to connect and find out what the Prayer Chaplain program can offer.
And speaking of programs, our Faith in Action program is just around the corner. And we're taking sign-ups for home hosts as well as facilitators for the upcoming program. And we're going to have a few words to share about this experience from our own board president, Carolyn Cochran, this morning.
Thank you. Okay, I have some questions for you. Have you been looking for a way to step into service that's a short-term commitment? Sometimes those long-term commitments are tough. Are you interested in being a part of our mission to transform lives? Have you been wanting to connect with more people in this congregation? And lastly, how would you like to have a tidier house? So here's how you can do that. By becoming either a Faith in Action home host or facilitator. I've been a home host and facilitator for many, many years. And the facilitator part, what I love about that is that I get to be the catalyst for amazing conversations and sharing and insights and you just guide the conversation. We provide you with a study guide with questions that you ask, so it's not that tough. We have training for facilitators, so to kind of help you understand the role. And it just you just participate in a deeper way, I think, when you facilitate a group. So I find it very, very rewarding that I get to just be the holder of that space for other people to discover whatever comes up in the group. And then as far as a home host, I have to say it inspires me to just at least do a little light housekeeping once a week for a 7-week period. And then, after that I can let it go. But, it kind of feels good. You just kind of have to stay on your toes a little bit. But the coolest part about being the home host, and my husband Bob can attest to this, is that there is the most incredible juju that is left in your house when that group walks out the door. And we often, as the last person leaves and they close the door, we stand in the entryway, and we really do this, and we look at each other and we just kind of go, ah. Because the energy that is left in your house from that group of people is phenomenal. I mean, you get to keep that. They leave, you get to keep that. So I invite you to, the signups are in the courtyard. If you've not thought about doing this before, step into, it's a short-term commitment. You don't have to hang with it for a long time. It is so rewarding. So either home host or facilitator. If you feel inspired, you can do both. So think about that. And just quickly, a show of hands. How many of you have been either a home host or facilitator before? Wow, so look around. And also look around. If you keep your hands up for just a second. If you haven't done it before, see the people with their hands up. Go talk to them after the service and say, how is this for you? Share their experiences too. So signups are in the courtyard after the service. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. And I think Paula
Paula
has
share
some
something
words
about
for us.
I do. This is the last time I will do this announcement. But this Saturday on the 26th, we have our dear friends J.D. Martin and Jan Garrett. They will finally be here after all these announcements to do their Heart of the Vision Quest mini retreat from 1 to 4 here in the sanctuary. Hopefully you've had time to go online, check out their video, and maybe hear a little bit of their music. Those of you who are new to them, they will be doing the Sunday service the following day on the 27th as well. So we hope to see you at both events, and it should be a wonderful time. You can still sign up in the courtyard and online, and it will be a wonderful time together. Thank you.
And we know by that live announcement by Becca and Ted that you don't need to bring a backpack, right? It's not that kind of vision quest, and you don't need to fast.
So it'll be a wonderful experience.
It'll be really easy.
Yes.
And so now I have a question for you. What would life be like if every day you lived with nothing and no one against you? Can you imagine what that freedom would feel like? So too often in life, we believe that outer circumstances and the things that people say and do that we think is about us, too often we let that limit our experience. We let it play in a loop over. I don't know if maybe you're not like me. Maybe it doesn't play in a loop over and over and over again. And you're thinking of ways that you could have responded, but you're still caught in the loop. So I want to tell you about a program that we have been offering for a while. We haven't opened it up to you as a general community yet, and we're just doing that now. It's called the Q process. It's a 21-day tool for kind of rewiring what your process is around things that happen outside of you, and more importantly, things that happen inside of you. So it's an inside job. It's coming up. It's a full day on Saturday, September 16th. Along with Elaine Laroa, will be facilitating this program. And then we have coaching sessions to go through the debriefing program, which are the worksheets that we do for the next 21 days to really get underneath what our triggers are. And it's a gentle process. Nobody makes you do anything. It's all voluntary. But I guarantee you, you will feel relief. I have felt tremendous relief from the outside world seemingly having an inside effect. It's really the opposite. So be sure to see me if you have questions. Sign-ups are just opening, and there is a very limited space available.
I know we've got a lot of people have taken it already, a number of folks here.
Over 75
Yes.
people here from our board and our staff, some of the prayer chaplains and our key leaders.
And it's been very transformative. So
It
if
has
you want to
been.
have that experience, check it out.
And sometimes I hear that you find a thing on your cue card like you're sassy.
Okay, let's not share
Okay,
that right now.
all right. That's for the workshop.
Okay, any ambassador prayer chaplains here this morning, if they would please stand. The ambassadors are wearing the rainbow ribbons, and they're here to offer a warm welcome and answer any questions that you may have about our Spiritual Life Center and connect with our activities as well as the programs that we have here. And the chaplains are here to hold you in confidential prayer during our human journey, as well as the joys and challenges that we have along the way. And they will be here in the sanctuary after the service in the courtyard to pray with you.
And if you're here for the first time, we would love for you to raise your hand and keep it up. If you're here for the first time.
Any first-timers
No
here
first
today?
timers. So we are all family here this morning. Let's stand and welcome everyone as a newcomer today.
And yes, and say how marvelous you look today.
I used to talk about how I wanted to change the world, but I always left it up for someone else to do. That's when I finally realized that I needed to take a stand, and that by changing my thinking, I could change my life. That's how I could change the world. So let there be peace. I am a stand for peace. Let there be love. I am a stand for love. Let there be joy. I am a stand for joy. We are making a new world now. Let there be peace. I am a stand for peace. Let there be love. I am a stand for love. Let there be joy. I am a stand for joy. We are making a new world now. Let there be peace. I am a stand for peace. Let there be. I am a stand for love. Let be joy. I am a stand for joy. We are making a new world now. Let there be peace. I am a stand for peace. Let there be love. I am a stand for love. Let there be joy. I am a stand for joy. We are making a new world now. We are making a new world now. Yes, we are. We are making a new world now. Please be seated.
It's an inside job, like Louise said. All right, now I invite you to read along together our vision statement. Spiritual Life Center is a loving, vibrant family that welcomes home all people and accepts everyone, no exceptions. Weaving ancient spiritual traditions with emerging wisdom, we cultivate a spiritual deepening with the divine, each other, and our planet.
And now, in preparation for meditation, I invite you to take a nice deep breath and just settle into your chair. As I think, so shall it be. God does great works through me. Together. As I think, so shall it be. As I know, so shall I see. As I feel, so let it be. God does great works through me. I know the truth within my mind, that as I think, so shall I find. I know the truth within my heart, and all I know, God's grace imparts. Thank you, Father. Thank you, Father. Thank you, God. Thank you, Mother. Thank you, Mother. Thank you, God. Thank you, Spirit. Thank you, Spirit. Thank you, God. Thank you, Father. Thank you, Father, Mother, God.
Thank you, Father, Mother God. We give thanks for a presence that is beyond words, but is real. It is more real than the chairs you're sitting in or the platform I am standing on. It is changeless. It is always for us and never, ever against us. And behind the appearances that we see in our outer world, the ups and downs of the human experience, the sense of separation that seems so real to our surface mind, that below all of that, behind all of that, There's a universal song of oneness. And this universal song of oneness is the melody of love. And it's love that binds us together. It is love that is our true nature and being. So it is from this space that we live our life. It is from this space that we see each other and we see our world. We begin with ourselves and know that this universal song of oneness begins with that melody of love. And we start by loving ourselves, releasing any sense of less than, releasing any sense of inadequacy, releasing any sense of not enoughness. And as we start with that realization that the Spirit of the living God loves us too much to leave us alone. So that no matter what we may be going through or growing through, it is an opportunity for us to grow and develop and unfold our soul, our essence, so that the true self shall shine through. We know that if we begin from the center of our being, feeling love, expressing love, acting from that space, then it radiates out to our world. Let us feel that sense of love in our hearts and the realization that we are made from the divine stuff and it's all good. Know that in the quietness for a moment as you affirm, I am an expression of love. As we feel that loving essence within us, affirming that love that we are, then it becomes much easier to see that it's the truth of all those around us. Even those who may have forgotten their divine origins. That we know that they're on their journey to realize the truth of who and what they are. And so we affirm that for them. We see that for them, even if they're not able to see it themselves right now. So we deal with the individuals as they are. We see them as they can be. And we hold that consciousness. And as we reach a critical mass for all of humanity, that this is the truth of who and what they are, then there is a shift. And we begin to move from any sense of separation, any sense of division, any sense of animosity or enmity, to the realization that we come from the same source, that same source of love itself. And we begin to feel and sense that universal song of oneness that is being broadcast everywhere. I behold the divinity in all around me. We affirm that in our minds and hearts, even when they are not acting in accordance with it. And we lift our eyes upon the hills from which cometh our help, and know that it's the Spirit of God that the transformation takes place. But we do our part by affirming the love within us, seeing that divine love within others. And as we do, we anchor a little bit more of heaven on earth. This is the truth. And we know it is the truth that liberates us and sets us free. So it is, and so we let it be. Amen.
There's a new church on the horizon, made of light, not of stone, calling out to all creation, you are not alone. Lions and lambs, saints and sinners, best of friends, enemies, woman and man, losers and winners, they're all in you and me. We are one heart, looking for answers. We are one soul, finding our way through the dark. One dream we share together. We are all a part of one heart. Out in the cold, there are faces hidden by the wind and rain. Hold out your hand, someone will take it and lead you home again. 'Cause we are one heart, we're looking for answers. We are one soul, finding our way through the dark. One dream we share together. We are all a part, one heart. Around the world tonight, all fires burning, tears are falling from the sky. Still the world keeps turning. We are one heart, one soul, one dream we share together. We are all a part, one heart. We're looking for answers. We
Okay, we got to feel that. I want you to turn to the person to the left and the right. Raise your arm and say, "We are one heart." And feel it. So, thank you for having me back again. And Reverend James, your meditation was so beautiful, and what you didn't know is you gave my talk.
There's only one mind going on.
That's right. So the title was beautiful, and I really had to work with it, and it's the power of oneness. How many of you would like to access that power? Good. All right, I'm in the right place. So what we're going to talk about is that there is an intelligence that weaves through the fabric of everything, and it's greater than our limited sense of self. The tricky part is not always being able to feel our availability to it, even though it's always present. The other tricky part is in speaking about this, because language can only take us so far. You know, there are certain experiences that we have a knowing for, but we can't necessarily talk about it. I'm going to take us to that edge and then have you go there as an invitation. So what I'm going to be talking about is what sustains that awareness and how it applies to our lives. So you interested? Mm-hmm. Cool. So I love looking up words, and so with that title, I looked up the word power. Power is synonymous with potency and possibility. And it also is realizing that we have the ability to do certain things. And oneness means undivided, indivisible. So we're not talking about one presence, like this is a presence here, or my presence, or your presence, but we're going to be speaking to presence itself, of what that is in us. And it's funny because we have both a personal and a transcendent relationship with God, don't we? So on a personal note, I was a teenager back in Michigan at Jack Boland's church, Unity Church, and there was a minister back then. I was only a teenager, and I remember this still to this day. It was a minister named Ernie Larson, and he said, "God is sneaky, and God's out to get you." And how God's out to get you is by putting people, places, and circumstances in the form of coincidences to show you not only how awesome your God is, but how incredibly loved you are. There's this amazing creative intelligence. And how many of you have noticed it's like a tapestry that kind of weaves through our life? I remember Colin Tipping had gotten this beautiful modern art, and it was just all knots and threads, and people were always admiring it, and people are looking at it like, okay, I guess beauty's in the eye of the beholder. And then one day this little kid took the art and he turned it upside down and saw this beautiful tapestry. Well, doesn't that seem like our lives too? That certain things happen and we kind of don't know how they all fit together. Like, why did this happen? And later go, oh, that had to happen so this could happen, even if it seems tragic at the time. So I have a interesting story. On that same note, recently, I think it was Wednesday, I was asked to give this talk, and I put out an email, a pesky email, asking two things. What's the title? And as a woman, what are the colors? And I didn't hear anything back at first, or I thought. And so I kept putting it out. Well, maybe there's nothing going on. Maybe we don't have colors. And finally I got back red and white. So I had this really cool red and white dress, and I waited until yesterday to try it on. Oops is right. How does it happen that clothes shrink? It's like, well, if I could hold my breath in the whole time, maybe no one will notice I don't exhale. So I put something else on. I looked kind of frumpy. And so then I went way to the corner, the end of my closet, and I noticed a white dress. I thought, okay, I'll wear red and white, right? And the funny thing about it is that the dress was my wedding dress, which I thought about, well, I always wanted a dress I could wear some other time. Well, when's the last time I wore that? Okay, that was, oh my God, that was August 20th, 1994, which is 23 years ago today. Now, it didn't work out, but it worked out. God is sneaky and has a sense of humor. So what mystics have found is that the direct path to experiencing that oneness is by relaxing into the silence. So I went back to the dictionary and I looked up silence. And the root word means silare, which means to stop speaking, but it's not just about keeping quiet. You know, there's a saying that a quiet man is a thinking man, and a quiet woman is mad. Well, that's not what we're going to talk about, okay? So another meaning for silence is, as the wind dies down, so too the stirrings of the mind. And in that silence, we're able to tune into the vastness of what's available to us in every moment. And it helps us stop that constant mind chatter that wants to distract us and take us away. You know, we know it's powerful, but how many times do we take the time to be still and know? And wouldn't you agree that, given our current world events, that in fear, we're divided? So what do they say? United we stand in love, and divided in fear we falter. So our purpose for being in communities like this is seeing that we are a part of something greater than us and greater than our circumstances, and to tap into that. Einstein said you can never solve the problem at the level of the problem. And Emerson says, I have an invitation. Contemplate the facts of life from the highest point of view. So would you be interested to know that by just doing nothing in the silence, it can be just as potent? I call that the do nothing prayer. And sometimes when we're there, don't you feel like, oh, nothing's happened when we're sitting in meditation? But later, you notice something has changed in us? It's because the silence is spacious. It grants us peace. It doesn't insist, it allows. And it allows things to evolve in subtle and not so subtle ways. So the other day, I saw a documentary about a powerful experience that came out of being in the silence, and it was recorded probably a couple decades ago, actually. And it was about a prison warden who was given her new position over 10,000 inmates to take on, and she wanted to take on a challenge of changes that would be more long-lasting. And what she noticed is that the guards were fierce with their punishment and their strict reinforcement, because they felt, if I treated you brutal enough, you won't come back. But she knew it didn't work. And she said, our human mind needs higher thoughts. It needs this spiritual food. How can we have transformation if we're distracted, fearful, or even tormented by our thoughts? You know, if we're just always reacting to the mind, how can we create true reform? No one is free until they master themselves. And so she put out a simple prayer. Help me. I don't know what I'm asking for besides a miracle. And then this peace came over her. It's kind of like what Michael Beckwith talks about, his 4-letter prayer before going into the silence, which is, help. So one day, a guard came up to her who had known of her, just of her intention. And he said, I have the answer. And with his help, she took on a 10-day experiment of creating a silent retreat, a 10-day silent retreat, in one of the most violent prisons. So when there's a violent prison, they don't even look at each other. There's always this edginess going on. And what he said, in order for you to set the stage for something deeper to happen, though, you and the guards have to do it first. And so she noticed right at the onset how difficult it was. She said it took 3 days to begin to quiet her mind. And she said, you know, even if we're not speaking, we're such noisy creatures. Our minds are always chattering. So a few weeks later, they put up a tent to house 1,000 of those men. And the warden had one rule. No men were allowed to come into that tent in chains. And even though some of the guards resisted at first, they said, well, okay, we'll just put out extra men with guns to make sure that no chaos breaks out. So they were instructed in Vipassana. Now, how many of you know what that is? It's a practice of mindfulness to settle the stirrings of the mind. And Gail, Vincent, and I, who do the Wednesday night, which we're having one coming up in October, we used to lead them 1- and 3-day retreats for about 6 years, but enough of that. So I'm going to give you the instructions as if I was the instructor giving it to you as the inmates. We will hold silence for 10 days. Pay attention to your breath, the flow of the breath as it moves in and out of your nostrils, as your belly rises and sinks, as your chest rises and falls. And being in an upright position with your spine would be helpful. He said, the mind, like wind, moves around. And if we identify with our mind, it will try to cling to something, anything. But the eternal space in which we abide is not threatened by wind. As your mind wanders, just name it and then come back to your breath. So he talked about what are called the 5 hindrances. The first one is restlessness. Well, if I could get comfortable, I could do this. Craving. Is it lunch yet? Aversion. Well, I could do this if this fly wasn't bothering me. Sleepiness. Can't I just meditate laying down? And doubt. This isn't doing anything. And he said, as you pay attention to your breath, you're going to notice that they are just passing thoughts. Only God is permanent. Everything else is changing moment by moment. You see, he could talk about God, This was India, and those were the instructions. But on the third day, there was a violent storm that came through and destroyed the tent. So the men were sent back to their cells and asked to continue the practice, which they did. And the guards and the staff were so inspired. They worked around the clock for 2 days. And on that third day, they were back doing their practice. That instructor also said that silence grants things space. When we let things be, it lets us be. Perhaps not at first, though. Because sometimes the silence reveals what is hidden. And you know, that can bring up a lot of stuff. One man said, I would rather be beaten by the guards than to face my own internal pain. But he said, notice everything is like a wave, a beginning, a middle, and an end. And Jesus says, having done all, watch. So why is it important that we even do something like that? Spend time in the silence as these guys did. Well, they began to notice something very interesting. And what they noticed was, oh, wait a minute, I'm going to get back to that. There's a potency we talked about power. And why it's important, especially during these times, is that then we are able to experience a place of connection. You know, right now the world is vying for our agreement in chaos. We ain't buying it, are we? No. And if we sit in the silence, we begin to poke holes in our mythology, which says we have to conquer nature or conquer each other. And those misperceptions lead us down the places of wrong-headed and wrong-hearted, don't they? How is it that we know more about our celebrities than we do our neighbors? I'm looking at time and the pages will keep flying here. So we've talked about the silence as pausing, maybe pausing before we even speak, that moment of silence before we react. Practicing being quiet and still as something we do, sitting in the silence. But what I'm about to speak about is deeper than this. It has nothing to do with words spoken or not, or whether even our thoughts are pleasant or not. You know, we know that there are times that we live only on the surface, like waves that don't go deep, that make a lot of noise. You know, we're like waves. Look at me, look at how tall and successful I am. Or, wow, does the way I splash make me look fat? But the ocean doesn't require the waves to be still, to be more ocean-like. Nor does the sky require that the clouds not be there to be as vast as it is. There's a silence in us that is not practiced. It's there. It simply is. That do-nothing prayer I talked about is not for something for us to practice, but recognize in us. It's already there in the core and the depths of our being. That amazing love that's living through you. I would love to give a talk sometime about prosperity, because we think that if I give this to you, I may have less. Or if we know the law, we know it comes multiplied tenfold. What if we knew it was God using us to give to God? And as we receive, it's God receiving through you to me. Wow, it's a whole nother way of realizing how much we impact each other with God being sneaky, of course. So that prison warden knew how difficult it was to be present with whatever showed up. She watched those guys squirm. She had been through it too. So on the 10th day, well, actually before that, she started to notice how the soul began to soothe their egos because they were going for it. And there began this groundswell where before there was a culture of judgment and separation. There began to be a culture of connection. And they didn't say a word. Because they were willing to become intimate with direct experience. They found they were no longer imprisoned by their thoughts, and the stories started to loosen their grip on them. You know, it's not so much that things had changed. The steel was just as cold. The bars were still as strong. The guards were still there on point. But they weren't imprisoned anymore by their thoughts. And this unspeakable groundedness of peace and even joy began to emerge. The instructor had said the virtue of this practice is in the returning. Not returning to the thought or to this, we talked about the loops. But to return to what is always changeless, what we are connected to, that power of oneness, that force that's available to us. So at the end of the retreat, each guard, where only weeks before were beating the heck out of the inmates, were there. Waiting open arms to greet each one of them, saying, I know what you've been through. It's like a badge of honor. We've gone through this together. And there was this weeping, and you wouldn't have known it might have looked like an ashram. And to this day, that prison project continues with tens of thousands of men. As we know, all over the world, this is going on. So how do we change the deep intercurrents of our society? Well, Thich Nhat Hanh talks about what he calls interbeingness. What happens to another happens to us. Rudolf Steiner says that as you're hearing my words right now, your vocal cords are mimicking the very words you're hearing. In other words, our subconscious mind only knows oneness. It doesn't know the difference between what it hears and what it speaks, which is why Rumi says, be with those who help your being. You know, that old model of privilege is crumbling. We are part of a one universe, one verse, one heart, one mind, one force. So my question to you is, what difference will it make if you don't practice spending time in the silence? Well, you'll have missed amazing opportunity to get yourself out of your own mental prison and experience life directly, not through the filters. But if you do spend time in the silence, even in the stillness, even with your eyes open, the gifts you'll experience will be awareness, freedom, and deep peace. And notice how will that affect your community? What will the power of oneness avail from you? We are being used by a greater good for a greater good. So this week, my invitation is for you to notice how God is being sneaky in your life, how God is active in your life. And to know that when we connect with that presence and power itself and live in it, we become the example for others to follow. We become like little tuning forks. They say when there's an act of kindness seen, there's more acts of kindness done. So the question is, will you do it? We can plant the seeds of kindness. We can change each other's life. We can make this world better. Let's do it, okay? God bless you. Thank you. Jesus.
Thank you, Gail, for that masterful reminder. And yes, you can come back and do that prosperity talk for us, too. We're waiting for that. And as we're preparing for our offertory and the musicians are getting in place, let's take those words into our own awareness that, yes, there is power in oneness and practicing that silence, that presence that's always there for us. And let's prepare our offertory and our giving. And as you symbolically raise it to the heavens and get into that flow, knowing that you're giving to a presence that is giving back to us so much more, let us say our offertory blessing together. Divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, and all that I circulate. Thank you, God.
That was my mulligan. I get one more shot at this. 3, 4. What if I could plant one seed into a field and watch it yield a crop? What if I could change the way the river flows by adding just one drop? Would I do it? How would I do it? Then I remember the most amazing things I've known have all been done through the power of one.
Okay, something just happened.
That's sneaky God, sneaky God. What's going on?
In the form of a coincidence.
Hey, hey.
Wait a minute.
We're out.
We're out. No power.
Hello?
No power. We have to use our soul.
No power.
You know what it was? I can tell you what it was.
You know what it was?
So, when you play with brushes, they're wire. And the reason I messed up the beginning is I had the wrong handle. So I had to drop the brush to grab the drumstick, drop the brush. It went right between the outlet and the plug, and there was a spark.
Oh.
All my hair fell out. And we lost our power. What's a good explicit word we can say? Okay. Unbelievable.
Well, okay.
Thank you. Imagine how great that would have been, though.
Is there an electric?
of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever we are, God is, I am, and all is well.
That's the amazing service. That much space.
But I think we should turn everything on.
Yeah, I got everything.
Your talk, I think. But don't think I mean, hopefully, yeah.
You're the only man standing.
Yeah, what it did is it caused a